I'm going to call this meeting to order. Do we have any items on, anyone from the public that would like to speak on items in the closed session agenda? Hearing none, I'll close this and we'll proceed to closed session. Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting back to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Rio, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Rio. Okay, I would like us to consider approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion, please? Is there a second? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Rio. Is there any discussion about the agenda? All in favor? Thank you. I just want to let the public know that Sean, you notice, isn't here tonight. We gave him an excused absence. He had other things he had to deal with. So now we going to move to input from the public regarding items not on the open session agenda. And I have Mary Fricker. Thank you, Mary.
Hello? Oh, good. Yes, a million thanks to Jenny and Greg for helping us with the El Molino memories. Yes.
Thank you, everybody. That's wonderful. Can't wait to see it. Next, we have Jolene Johnson. Jolene?
Hello, my name is Jolene Johnson. I'm staff and I don't live in the district. Dear West Sonoma County Board, I would like the opportunity to share some ideas and concern about our district. Attendance, mission and goal for AIA, superintendent's evaluation and contract, budget cuts, class sizes, etc. First, with attendance. I know we are trying to increase ADA, and I'm curious if you have thought about using an outside resource like School Status Attend, now called A2A. In the piece of paper that I gave Jenny to give to everyone else, it's a really nice resource there. We use it at our VUSD district, and we have gained back to $130,000 just so far this school year. So the program does have a cost of $25,000 to start, but you'd gain that back in a few months, etc. So for something that we're really trying to pull back, especially helping Gina with an overflowing school to make sure that truancy and letters out to family and when to come to school, not to come to school, etc. I think it would be a really good opportunity to gain some of the ADA. Mission goal for AIA. We were told by Chris Meredith that we would have, his goal was 30 students this year, and next year's goal is to have the same. We now have 18 students at AIA, and I'm not sure of the plan to increase new numbers for this 9th grade class and next year's incoming students. What actions will our superintendent take to ensure this school is successful? Can this be a line item for a future board meeting? And can he present his goals and the actions he is taking to complete said goals? For the superintendent, I know I have shared the concerns that we had when the superintendent was first hired. Some gave him the benefit of the doubt, being new, etc. But now a few years in, and with people noticing lack of presence on campus or in the district office, lack of clear communication of goals and actions, difference in demeanor with action with female staff compared to our male counterparts, etc., has not improved. He should have been attending our school events and be present more in our community. For example, he was not at our highest attended freshman night last week. He needs to come to all of our school's functions. One theater event, one band, choir, dance, one ag event, some of our noted fundraisers like Chilingo, the talent show, and see all the different sports, not just football. I thought there was going to be quarterly reviews of improving sentiment, and I'm curious how that is going. Additionally, for someone who makes more than our state superintendent of California and only looks after 2 actual sites, I believe he makes too much money. And the board approved an automatic 3% annual raise in 2024. I would like his contract to be looked at this year since I believe it's up for renewal and remove that annual automatic raise. We are in a time of uncertainty, and for someone to have good leadership skills, they should be leading by example and take that first hit of budget cuts. Most of the roles of the DO that have the highest 6-figure salaries, I feel like maybe should do the same. And future budget cuts. I know we are worried about the Santa Rosa City Schools denying our transfers. That's a real fear and can have devastating consequences. But before we cancel anything and everything that is smaller than 25 students, I do hope you consider certain situations where class size and injury prevention are obtained with smaller class sizes. Our ability to teach certain subjects requires a certain amount of students. For example, the amount of students who have access to the stove or cooking area in culinary, the number of stations in science, and the ability to move their bodies and dance. Additionally, I know we haven't filled the food service positions, and I hope you don't intentionally not fill those, although I just heard that you did for 0.6, so congratulations. We have been servicing more students than ever, making sure that students have full bellies so they can use their minds. So please be mindful of filling these positions so we can continue to meet the basic tier necessities of students. And when renovating a kitchen space to complete this task,
Your time.
Okay, thank you, and I hope you read the rest of this.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to move on to the consent calendar. Can I get approval for the consent calendar? Thank you, Louis. A second, please. Thanks, Linda. Is there any discussion about the consent calendar? All in favor, say aye. Aye, thank you. So now we're going to move on to a special recognition of our Zero Waste Sonoma County and Recology, and I'm going to turn it over to Jenny. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, guys. I have a couple people here tonight who I would like to recognize. We have Sloan from Zero Waste Sonoma County, and we have Ambrosia from Recology. And a lot of times we pass these green initiatives and board policy and administrative regulation, and we don't ever kind of check in with what we're doing and how we're progressing. And I'm really proud of the efforts of our district and our students and our community to be good stewards of our planet and our community. And when I reached out earlier in the school year, trying to move towards trifold garbage bins for compost, landfill, and recycling to increase our garbage can awareness on campus, to hopefully help our students put garbage into the right sector, to reduce our overall footprint into the landfill. It was received with such an amazing support from our partners in our community. Recology put me in touch with Sloan, and I asked for some help, some funding, and they came back, and I thought they were going to go like, oh yeah, here's $2,500. It was $25,000. And that is just something I felt compelled to bring to the board, to showcase to our community about, our partners out here who are willing to put their money where their mouth is to help us achieve our goals. Not only will it reduce our overall operations budget as we put more stuff in the right garbage can, but it's just the right thing to do. And everyone at the DO knows that I've implemented this. We've got all new trash cans. We've got lots of signage up. We're starting to practice what we preach. And I'm here to acknowledge both of them tonight. I know Sloan has a small PowerPoint presentation that she just would like to share with you about the work that they do. And Ambrosia just wanted to tell you a little bit about how she partners with us from an educational standpoint. So if you want to come up to the microphone, I'll get your slideshow ready. I was just hoping to give them a few minutes to showcase what they do for our community.
Hello, my name's Ambrosia Thompson, and I'm a waste area specialist for Recology Sonoma Marin. And I've actually been in this position for about almost 10 years, I think now. I was with the previous hauler. Anyways, I've always worked very closely with Annalee High School. But I'm really excited this year because we've already got a jump start on next year and starting to implement things this year. So I'll be providing education. I'll be working with green teams if we can get some green teams on board. Really need a lot of support from administration. And I can come in and teach the students, you know. So in the past, I've done lunchtime audits, and what those look like is we dump the waste on the ground and it's all over the place. And it's really eye-opening for the students because they're seeing the trash, right? It's all on the ground, food waste, all of it. So it's very eye-opening. It's been a couple years since we've done that, but yeah, I'm really excited to get involved this year and make some changes. And then with Sloan and the county, you know, providing those receptacles, it's going to be great. So thank you.
Okay. All right. So I'm Sloan Pagal. I'm with Zero Waste Sonoma. And I just thought it would be great to take this opportunity to let you know who we are in case you haven't heard of us before. And there's a lot of slides. I'm going to try to move quickly because I know you got a big meeting ahead. So we are a joint powers authority. We were formed back in 1992 to implement policy and programs to reduce waste that's sent to landfill. And we are governed by a board of directors with representation from all 10 jurisdictions within Sonoma County. So our 5 main areas are organics, household hazardous waste, compliance and reporting and planning, outreach and education, and zero waste program. And that's kind of my area of expertise. So our mission is to empower personal action in waste reduction and materials management by implementing practical solutions to protect our natural resources. And we want to do that through an engaged and informed community with the shared goal of thriving in a sustainable region without waste. Our website is zerowastesonoma.gov. That's a pretty easy one to remember. And if you ever have questions about what goes in what bin or how to dispose of something, I really recommend visiting the website and using that handy search bar so you can find a quick answer. So in 2024, we reach out to the community through events in person, online, and there was about 7 in Sebastopol, so that's consistent kind of year to year. Next. You might know us from our recycling guide. It's now called the Zero Waste Guide, and I have brought some for folks to take over at the front desk there. It has sort of a condensed version of what's on our website, so if you prefer a printed version of that, that's nice to keep in your kitchen. We also work with Saluna Outreach Solutions to provide Spanish language outreach. So that's through radio, events, and through the business community as well. And just to highlight the way that we are funded to help provide these bins here on campus, the receptacles, it's the City County Payment Program. So we manage this fund through Cal Recycle. We gotta
Go back to.
okay. And some of the eligible expenses for that.
iPhone. Does anyone have an? I don't even know what that's in. I'm gonna figure that out in a second.
Where's Becky?
I don't know what's happening. Is anyone named Becky in here?
There's somebody in a
I'll get it back
completely
in a
different
second.
part of the school.
That
Oh, maybe. Oh, yeah.
even tech doesn't have an answer for that. I have no idea. But I'll get us back up in a second. I'm not supposed to.
She probably has no idea.
We just like to keep things fun and going around here. Constantly on our toes.
Oh yeah, okay. So through that funding source, some of the other eligible types of items are water refill stations, multi-material bins, litter abatement supplies, and then like educational materials. So we're really glad to be able to provide assistance with that so that students can learn, like practice the sorting at school, bring it home as well, and just be good stewards of the environment. Next. Another one of our programs is repair fairs and fix it clinics. So we had one last year or the last 2 years in West County. That was like the closest to this area out in Guerneville. But this year we are bringing one to Sebastopol in June. So check out the Reuse Alliance website. That's our partner that runs these events. And if there are folks around in the community that want to organize their own, we do have many grants to support that. It could be a cool school activity as well. And another resource that we offer is up to $600 for supporting reuse. So an example could be a school or a church saying we want to implement reusables on campus, and we want to purchase, a number of dishware items, cups or utensils. We could help you and sort of implement that program. So we also manage the Household Hazardous Waste Program, and that includes a permanent facility out at Meacham Road, collection events that happen weekly on Tuesdays and kind of rotate all around Sonoma County, and a pickup service. So if you're looking for paint, we have a free paint collection or pickup program. So all the paint that's dropped off gets reprocessed into those 4 colors that you can kind of see. That's give or take. So it's good for, like cities like to use it for graffiti abatement and that kind of thing. So keep that in mind if you're looking for paint. We also do e-waste collection events. It's a huge part of our waste sector. And so those are in person and they kind of rotate throughout Sonoma County. And we also offer free drop off at the transfer stations. To better serve our North Sonoma County residents, we are going to be building a new HHW facility up in Windsor. It's all in process right now, so see that in about 3 years. So SB 1383 is like a really big change to waste in Sonoma County, or in the state actually, and we are working with our haulers and the cities to implement it locally and make sure that we are adhering to the laws. And it's quite large, as you can see. It has to do with keeping organics out of the landfill and redistributing food. There's a lot more to it, but those are kind of the things that you see on school campuses. So we were able to kind of work with Conservation Corps North Bay and receive some grants to help recover some of this food so it can go to feed hungry people rather than go into the landfill. And just kind of like the hierarchy of how we think about food and what to do with it. First and foremost, you want to donate or upcycle it, of course. If it can't be eaten by humans, go ahead and feed the animals with it, or actually just let it drop on the ground. And if you have a green bin collection program that we do here, you could also compost that or anaerobic digestion. And then the other ones we don't really want to do. So the last case scenario is sent to the landfill. One idea that schools are implementing to reduce food waste is share tables. I think this is a lot more common in elementary and middle schools, but it is something that can be implemented with very little effort, and it's a really good way to just redistribute. We offer compost hubs, and those are some of the locations where they are. And these are free resources for the community to come and collect compost to apply to their spaces. So kind of full circle. So when you're putting your food waste into your green bin or your yard scraps, that goes to a compost facility. And then these hubs are an opportunity to pick up the finished products for free. If you are looking or if you are actively using a lot of compost, this is a program that we also offer 10% rebate for compost. So that's just something you can find on our website. And another facility that is in process, people are excited to hear that we are going to be having our own organics facility come to Sonoma County. So that's also in the process. It's still early on, and we're hoping for 3 years out. We'll see. And then just keep an eye out for Zero Waste Week happening in October. We do this every year, and it's free community events all around different types of waste reduction. Tours, Recology offers free tours of the MRF, clothing swaps, repair fairs, all kinds of really fun things and educational. So check out the website for that. And I think that's the last slide. So thank you so much for the opportunity to present, and would love to have some photos of those receptacles once they're out there.
We did the first iteration and we'll do we're going to do a big push to implement it for next school year. Just because we feel that that's when the training of students is
fall.
much easier.
Yeah, after people come back from summer break.
I just want to applaud them again for all their community efforts. Anytime we call you, you respond. It's great to have partnerships in the community that show up. And, you know, the $25,000 is very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. And that would be to Linda.
There were no actions
Thank you.
taken.
And now we're going to move on to consideration approval of the monthly budget update. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Linda. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Lewis. Okay, I'm going to turn that over to Andrew.
Well, that should have been in consent, so that got moved around. You know, what you see in the report there is what's changed in each fund balance. Sorry.
We'll get it in the right place next time. Thank you so much. All in favor of this motion? Aye, thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, now we're going to move on to reports. I don't see our student reps here, so we're going to go to association. So we have CTA. Jessica can work on that. Thank you, Jessica. Okay, Lily.
Hi, I'm Lily Smedshammer, President of the Teachers Association, representing teachers, counselors, psychologists, nurses, and speech language pathologists. We all know that our enrollment picture is changing. With neighboring districts beginning to restrict inter-district transfers, we're facing a predictable decline over the next several years. That's real and it deserves serious planning. What I want to emphasize is this: a decline in enrollment does not automatically mean a crisis if we plan ahead. We have time to be thoughtful. That means looking honestly at how we adjust, including right-sizing staffing and programming offers, but doing that strategically, gradually, and with input from the people who work here every day. That means being clear about which programs we protect, which ones we grow, and how we align staffing responsibilities as enrollment changes. What it should not mean is freezing wages or falling behind neighboring districts. We are headed into negotiations soon, and I want to be very clear about the union's position. Losing enrollment should not mean a loss in compensation, especially if the district plans ahead and adjusts responsibly. We cannot afford to lose good teachers to Healdsburg, Calistoga, or Novato because our salaries stop keeping pace. Retention matters, stability matters, and competitive compensation is part of being fiscally responsible. We are ready to work collaboratively on long-range planning, but we also expect that planning to include respect for the workforce that keeps this district strong. The WSCTA wants to be in the meetings when these programmatic decisions are being made. I also want to talk about the statewide picture. CTA is helping gather signatures to qualify Proposition 55 for the fall. This measure would extend an existing tax on the highest income Californians. It's not a new tax. A significant percentage of our state contribution to public education comes from this funding source. Stable state revenue matters. It helps districts weather enrollment changes without deeper cuts, and it supports the kind of long-term planning we're talking about tonight. I'll have petitions available after the meeting for anyone who would like to sign and help get this measure on the ballot for the fall. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to continuing these conversations together.
Thank you, Lily, so much. Julie?
Hi. Julie McClellan, CSEA President, librarian here. Yes, exactly what she said. Yeah, I'm like, so yeah, negotiations are coming up. Obviously, our members are a little worried, right, with the changes that are coming, concerns where the cuts are going to hit and how that might affect them. So we also, want to be at the table, want to understand what's going on. So we're already down to bare bones, right? Our members, we used to have lots of people in lots of places, so there's not a lot of places to cut. So we just want to be sure that that's clear. We were glad to see that the cafeteria kitchen workers were being flown, and hoping we get a couple new really great people in there. I'm hoping we might be able to reach out to like maybe some freshmen, incoming eighth grade parents or freshman parents, right? Get somebody in there that wants to be here, likes the teenagers, and will stay with us for a while. So hoping those things, we might be able to be creative in how we find the people to fill those positions. So looking forward to getting to negotiations soon. And yeah, we're all busy doing jobs around campus, and I see the campus supervisors transporting kids around in our cool little buggies, and had a kid that's getting some surgery, and to be able to tell them there's a member here on campus that can, there's a staff member that can help you with that. So it's really nice to be able to offer those services. The kids this is the first time it's happening for them, so they don't know that. So I appreciate getting to have those real conversations with kids. So thank you for your service. I appreciate what you do.
Thank you so much, Julie. We're going to move on to principal reports. Who wants to go first? Hey, Greg, go ahead. Thank you.
All right, good evening. Bear with me, I'm battling through a little bit of a cold here. So for Laguna High School, when we finished up in December, and it's always a little bit of a bittersweet time as we say goodbye to some early graduates. So we had 9 early grads this year, which was really cool. And it's been really neat. When we came back in January, we've seen a handful of them already back in the office and continuing to get support for now their JC class load and things like that. So it's always really neat when we get them to come back. And so it's cool to see them kind of doing their thing and moving on. With the end of the semester and the early grads, that means a couple of things. One, the holiday meal, which is always a great pleasure to host, and thank you to those who came. But also in front of you is our Lit Mag that Miss Mack puts together twice a year. And so if you get a chance, dig in there. There's some really, really incredible work from our students. And Miss Mack does an amazing job of putting it together and highlighting what the kiddos are doing. Coming back in January, we've, kind of tinkering with some things as typical. Miss Malone, who just has like a really amazing way of just making things happen. With student council, has really started to revamp kind of our Rhino Bucks and our PBIS, and where we used to serve food on campus is now turned into our student store. And so when students receive Rhino Bucks for positive interactions on campus, they get to spend them at the store that the students are now running. So really, really cool transformation there. Last week, we hosted Redwood Credit Union, and we had a bite of reality, the financial lit experience. So students come in and they're assigned a career and a salary, and there's folks all around the library at different tables, and we're selling them housing and life insurance and childcare and cars and vacations, and have to learn how to manage a budget. So it's always fun, and always fun to see mainly our teachers over there trying to upsell the kids and get them to buy things they don't need. It's always a good time. So, but Matt from Redwood Credit Union does a really fantastic job of, explaining what a budget is and what a budget isn't, and how you can make it work for you. So super valuable experience there. And we also have just received some new signage that was put up. So if you are looking in from Covey Road on top of the F building, you'll see our new sign that says Laguna High School. So Jenny and Denise and everybody for making that happen. It looks really, really good. And you can see it great from the road. Just so really, really well done. On the AIA side of things, we came back and as part of our morning advisory period, Ms. Moeen has been putting together some different committees on campus. So some of the committees that we have going, you know, kind of a handful of students with a teacher or staff member and working. So really working on some PBIS, some campus beautification, a recruiting committee and school culture committees. So we've met a couple times now, and it's been really a lot of fun and really a great way to get student input and students active with what we have going on campus. Ms. Moeen's also been putting together some leave to learns. So food for thought. Our students have been there a handful of times. And also recently took a trip to the bagel mill, and science students are learning about some fermentation and doing some fermentation in the innovative arts period. So really kind of a cool way to see it in action, and someone who's running their own business and how does the fermentation work, and kind of just tying those concepts together. After tomorrow, we will have been in 4 middle schools in 2 weeks. And continuing to go there, we're also going to host another recruiting event on February 17th on our campus. And then also looking at hosting a virtual recruiting night 2, date TBD. So we're in full swing of that as well. And I think lastly, next week, our students are going to be taking a trip to the Exploratorium, and kind of a neat setup. So our students will go to the Exploratorium, and, you know, really we're going to kind of talk to them about all the hands-on exhibits, but also kind of what's the design process and the creation process and all of that. And then actually what's really neat is Mr. Smith and Ms. Moeen are going to hang back, and we have some PD happening from Big Picture Learning. We're doing some work on advisory and competencies and competency-based grading. And so looking forward to that. And then lastly, we should be receiving our WASC update end of this month, first week of February. So hopefully next board meeting, come in here and have some good news on that front.
Thank you so much, Greg. Chuck?
Chuck Wade, Principal, Annalee High School. Since my last board report, Annalee has experienced a positive stretch. High levels of student engagement, thoughtful instruction, steady progress on a number of things we're working on. In the weeks leading up to winter break, staff paired high academic expectations with intentional wellness supports during finals week. Students participated in stress-less activities such as yoga in the Wellness Center, Cocoa on the Quad, joyful moments organized by leadership students. And I think those efforts generally helped create a calm, supportive environment during an academically demanding time. Final assessments across campus reflected both depth of learning and creativity. I saw students presenting original choreography, designing and tasting culinary menus based on classical techniques, AP psychology, research exhibits, engineering projects. I saw original history-themed songs and videos. And across disciplines, I would say students were asked not just to recall content, but to apply, to create, and to reflect. Our arts, activities, and athletics programs were also in full swing. Choir, band, agriculture, and dance events drew large audiences. Winter sports were fully underway. We had well-attended senior night for our co-ed wrestling team. Leadership students also hosted a successful club day and raised funds for student activities, helped launch a new club serving Native students. We've continued to prioritize outreach and transitions for future Tigers. We welcomed educators from Twin Hills to observe classes and connect with students and staff, strengthening our articulation with our feeder schools. I want to specifically recognize Vice Principal Gianna for her leadership in middle school outreach and for organizing the exceptionally successful incoming ninth grade night. Families consistently shared how supported and informed they felt, and the event reflected the care we place on student placement and belonging from day one. And honestly, a whole bunch of folks on staff were involved in making that night successful. Lots of folks in the front office, but also about half of our teaching staff attended that event, and I heard from tons of families how welcomed they felt. Campus safety remains a critical focus. Under the leadership of Vice Principal Christy Calson, we've continued refining our safety systems, including staff training on emergency reunification procedures. That's sort of a new area for us. That work's challenging, but essential. And Christy's thoughtful and thorough approach has helped ensure our campus is well prepared. We met this week with the incident command team as well, and we're going to continue refining our systems. We're continuing to improve efficiency and clarity of other systems too. Vice Principal Sanft has been instrumental in supporting our site around data analysis work, helping staff and community members make sense of multiple data sources, including wellness, discipline, and academic data to guide school improvement efforts. We're going to continue working on that as well and get a little better at using data. I think hopefully most of you know our Youth Truth survey is underway. We hope you'll encourage community members to take that survey. We're going to have access this year to disaggregated data separated from open-ended public comments, which will allow us to share that information more broadly. I won't have specific staff names involved. I'm super excited about that. I think it's really going to allow us to dig into that information in a different way. As you know, we can sort that information by demographic factors and really learn, how different things that we're trying are impacting different segments of our population. So I think it's really, really important that we have lots of folks take that survey. Finally, we're seeing visible progress on our facilities. I know you'll hear more about that from Jenny in a while. Construction continues on the new building, including interior work, which was really cool to see recently in the culinary space in particular. Installation of major mechanical systems is ongoing. We had cranes putting HVAC units on top of buildings, 4-ton things swinging through the air. It's kind of cool to see. New outdoor furniture is in the space between the village and the cafeteria, which is also nice to see. Overall, I think the school's operating with increasing clarity and purpose, continuing to build momentum across the campus. There's clear attention to joy and belonging, seen in student engagement, performances, shared traditions, high expectations reflected in rigorous creative academic work, increased access through thoughtful transition work, outreach, and course placement, and safety through deliberate planning and system refinement. Together, I think those efforts point to a campus that's improving. We're working to sustain our strengths in a changing environment and to continue addressing areas for growth in a thoughtful way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chuck. Great work, you guys. Now we're going to move on to board member reports. Rio, do you have any report?
None from me.
Thank you. Linda?
The only thing I have was I did go to the holiday lunch at Laguna and it was wonderful. And the people, I think everyone of Greg's family was in the kitchen cooking. So I appreciate that effort, definitely, because I think all the kids and the adults that were there really enjoyed it. So thank you for that.
Lewis?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say I went to the Laguna Holiday Luncheon too, and it was delightful. And the food was fantastic. Really, really good. So thank your family. They obviously know how to cook Thanksgiving meal. So thank you. It was really lovely, or a holiday meal. Anyway, thank you. That was delightful. Next, we'll move on to the superintendent report. Chris?
And then Andrew and I attended the budget workshop in Sacramento that we do annually, and the governor's budget was released, formally finalized over the weekend, preliminary budget. So that was very interesting, a lot of takeaways. And then Andrew and I attended a follow-up meeting that's held locally by Capital Advisors at SCO this morning. So kind of regurgitated that information in a little bit of a different way, a little more interaction in that. The projected COLA is set at 2.41%. We've been busy navigating the interdistrict transfer changes in SRCS. Specifically, Jessica and I working really, really closely with our families to help navigate, the process for them to obtain an approved interdistrict transfer. As we've heard tonight, and as I've shared with y'all, it's definitely an uphill battle, and something that we're going to continue to think strategically around and be thoughtful with how we respond. The enrollment projections will be discussed in the King presentation tonight. There's an inclusion of what it's going to look like without Santa Rosa, as well as some of the historical enrollment trends. So that's going to be really good information for the Board of Trustees and our public. I know we've heard the acknowledgement already of our recruitment efforts, but I just want to give a second shout out to Gianna and the team at Annalee for making all the visits to our local partner districts, Greg and his team, Cole, for putting on the academy recruitment efforts are underway, and they're bringing maker projects with them and really getting the kids engaged. And I was able to see some photos. Jessica attended the first one, and it looks like the students are having a good time, and it's working. So we're starting to see some preliminary enrollments, and we're just going to continue to adjust accordingly. I want to thank Cole. He's here. You're going to hear from him tonight, just for writing the content in the recent Sebastopol Times article that was posted. It was a great article, and I think it really tells the story of what we're doing and why it's a program that serves a specific demand that's out there for our community and students. Youth Truth, as Chuck mentioned, it closes on the 30th. So we want to encourage everybody within our community to complete that survey. And I too am excited about the ability to disaggregate data and get more into the weeds on that with staff, being that they're going to be able to separate names. LCAP season is upon us. I'm really excited to go to work on this and prepare the mid-year report for February. We're going to begin our Ed Partner collaboration in March. As I've mentioned, I'm very proud of the growth in our test scores, both CASP, AP scores, no longer eligible for differentiated assistance. I believe in this strategic plan. It's built for our current demographics and the needs of our students, and it's working. We're coming into the third year of that cycle. We'll be building a new plan, and we'll be able to adjust accordingly with some of the changes that we know are coming. We've heard from our labor partners this evening in their reports. We too are looking forward to our continued collaboration at the table. Our first session with WSCTA is on the 6th, and CSEA will be scheduled in the near future.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, next we're going to move on to educational services. And we have a presentation from the Academy of Innovative Arts with our partner here. So welcome.
To welcome Cole to the podium. We had a student that was prepared to present on the progress of the portfolio. That student was ill, so Cole's going to go through some talking points, and we'll plan to have the students present on their portfolios. They're really, really cool. I had a chance to sit down with several students and Cole and look through their progress and the evolution and how it's just kind of grown. And I'll let Cole take it from here.
Yeah. Thank you. Cole Smith, teacher at Academy of Innovative Arts. Yeah, and we had an ill student that was going to join us. And then like half of our school is wrestling at Annalee, and there's a big wrestling meet too. So there's a good update for you too. We have a bunch of good athletes too, all kinds of sports. So I just give you a quick update on where we've been first semester, where we're headed second semester, and it's all good news. So first semester was this wonderful time where the year plus of dreaming and planning and we're going to do this met the reality of having a group of students in the room. So kind of the first semester's theme was just kind of becoming a school and riding some waves up and down, kind of figuring out what those master plans had, like what's actually going to work once we get the kids in front of us. And a lot of it worked, some of it didn't. And then, of course, there was some new emergence along the way as well. And so I think that first semester was a lot of things, challenging, fun, a little bit of everything. But now the second semester has really kind of smoothed out. I kind of think we all know, you know, what we're doing. We have our vision now, and it's much smoother. So, yeah, but that first semester, it was great. As a longtime West County resident and a father who's had children come through the district, it's great to be on the El Molino campus with our Laguna partners and you know, kind of helping bring the campus back to life. Or, you know, we're running mile times out on the track, you know, flag football, soccer on the field. The new spaces that we've opened up with the maker spaces have been great. You know, being in the library, it's just really nice to see the facilities, you know, coming back to life. And I have to point out the partners that have helped make this happen too. So Dale's been a great supporter of the program in so many ways. SCO has also been a great supporter. Casey Shea at SCO has been helping out quite a bit with his labor, but then also material and equipment. SCO has been kicking in. We've been working with the CTE Foundation of Sonoma County. In fact, next week I'm picking up at Sonoma Clean Power these kind of make it yourself skateboard scooter kits that are motorized, and the focus is on the circuitry and the motors, not like going, you know, 100 miles an hour down the sidewalk or anything. So should be more of a, you know, engineering thing than a daredevil thing. So working with CTE Foundation. Also very exciting project we've been doing with partner, the Stewards of the Coast and Redwoods, doing the food lockers for Bullfrog Pond Campground, which is in Armstrong Woods. It's been closed down since the Wallbridge fire, and they're looking to reopen the campground. And so we built these lockers for them, and then they showed up and said our prototype's beautiful, but it needs to change completely. So we're kind of redesigning it and looking for a cabinet maker that might have some suggestions. Yeah. So it's been a group effort for sure. And then academically, you know, doing things a little bit different at the alternative school. We're still grading ABC D. No Fs. But the focus has been competency-based grading. So we have our 5 competencies that we still give the letter grade, but we also give a competency-based grade where at the end of the semester we sat down, we looked at the student portfolios, which is kind of the cornerstone of all their work, and looked in their portfolio of work and went looking for these competencies. And so one of the advantages of that small school is, you know, those one-on-one conversations and like really deep feedback. You know, each one of these interviews was, you know, 15-minute minimum, half hour, oftentimes just kind of one-on-one with a teacher looking at their work. So the portfolios were great. So that's what we did, and then now coming back, second semester, we're hitting our groove. Been attacking some of the things that we were supposed to be doing that we couldn't quite get in the first semester. One of the interesting things about this program, we're trying to see what education looks like in the age of AI. So that's been an exciting challenge that I don't think any of the adults have the answers to. So it's kind of fun to be moving through those waters with the kids and figuring stuff out. Kind of our flagstone class is innovative arts. It's have it every day at the end of the day, 90-minute blocks, and it's where students are doing all kinds of things. What we're doing in the third quarter are what we call focused training blocks, where for 4 of the 5 days of the week, kind of a scripted project based on the expertise in the room. So Ms. Moyne is doing food and fermentation. Our shop manager, Marty Marfin, has a great design background. So he's been working them through a design process where they're making light boxes that includes the circuitry to make it work. And then I'm a builder in all kinds of different ways, and I've been leading them through legacy projects, we call it. We are the first class. It says on my shirt. So we're doing these things like a cool mural that will go up on the wall, some stuff to kind of, you know, leave our fingerprint on the makerspace in particular, as you know, being the first class. So a blend of carpentry and metalworking and art. And so we're doing that in our innovative arts class. And then we are also preparing for a fourth quarter freshman final project. And that's where it's really kind of wide open in terms of what type of making they're making. It could be, you know, metalworking, woodworking, you know, culinary, textiles. And so right now we're kind of preparing for that, figuring out what's the right scope. You know, can you actually do it? How much is it going to cost? All those things. So that's been kind of the most exciting part about the classroom life, second semester. And then, as was hinted at before too, it's recruiting season. So we're getting out there and beating the bushes and getting next year's freshman class. I told this year's freshman class they have to stay freshmen unless we get the next class to bump them up. So they're very motivated. So we've been going to middle schools. Been to 3 so far, 4 tomorrow. I think we got Fort Ross on the books as well, and we're trying to hit all the feeder schools. And so I've been you know, taking a truckload of gear and literally truckload, you know, drill presses, circuitry, hammers and nails, a little bit of everything. And then the school van has been coming with a bunch of students, and we've been entertaining and recruiting the 8th graders. So we've been doing all kinds of fun stuff. And it's working. It's cool because we have the sign up sheet. And so, you know, we go to Hillcrest and we come back the next day and we'll look and, you know, see if it worked, you know, see if any Hillcrest folks signed up, and it's working. So, you know, bit by bit, one student at a time, you know, we're building the school. And it's great to be able to go out there and meet them where they're at and have a captive audience, you know, and so it's been, I think, successful. So. Yeah, so the recruiting is the big update. I guess I also want to just make one point to the board as well about sustainability and how we've been doing this. You know, so I mentioned our partners. Dale has been giving all kinds of resources to have us have a full-time position of a shop manager. Our partners have been helping out. To my knowledge, we've been able to provide a top-notch program, particularly a top-notch makerspace, innovative art space, shop. And I don't believe we've needed to request any money for it at all. So I know we're small and we're fringe, but I think we're a pretty good deal. I would also point out just my past career. I was one of the original teachers at Tech High, and I keep flashing back to those moments, those kind of tough early years with enrollment and who do we have, how many do we have, you know, staff turnover and just like kind of these tough times. But I keep feeling that same vibe of it's challenging now, but just giving it time. I think we're a pretty good deal for what we're doing. And you know, Tech High turned into one of the better schools in the county and in the state. And I really feel like with all the resources we have and the team we have, I think we're heading in that same direction. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes us special. Hey, the other thing that makes us special is we make stuff. So I brought you guys presents because we've been recruiting and we've been making t-shirts galore. So I got some t-shirts for y'all that the students made this morning. And then a big hit, we've also been doing some laser engraving on these little black anodized business cards with the QR code. So I'll give you one of these if you know any eighth graders around. So, all right. Yeah, thanks.
Question? Yeah, I know. I told him I want some for business cards. Thank you, Cole.
I just want to say thank you so much, Cole. Yeah, great. I think we are so very blessed to have the program that we have, and I just can't thank you enough for letting us steal you away and starting this new program. It thoroughly makes me smile, and I know some kids who are involved, and the parents just cannot be more thrilled. And their son's wrestling He's doing things that he never would have ever considered had he not been in the environment he's in. So thank you. I know you're making differences for kids, and that's what this was all about. Anybody have any questions for Cole? Okay, great. Keep on doing what you're doing. Okay, next we're going to have a discussion regarding district-wide cell phone board policies and site-based practices.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome Greg and Chuck. They're going to go through this presentation. I think it's a really well put together presentation that maps out, our timelines to further the discussion. And this is a starting point. So I just want to thank them both for collaborating together. I know how busy it is to be a site principal, but this is a really important conversation and it's a well put together presentation as well. So thank you.
Yeah, so we'll go through this, and I think for me anyway, this has been something that we've tried, in my time at Laguna, and I know Annalise had their policies. We've tried different things and really unsuccessfully. And so I think Jenny, if you can go next slide, or check it. Oh, okay. So I think the goal that Chuck and I are looking for today is really to start a conversation and get some direction. I think as a district-wide approach is the way to go. On the Laguna side of things, as we receive our students from Annalee High School and our students go back to Annalee, having the same policy makes a lot of sense in my mind. And the other thing is I want to be clear, especially because when we talk to students about cell phones and cell phone policies, it oftentimes comes across as feeling like a punishment, and that's really not the case. I think the aim here, and we have some stats to show you, and I mean, not a ton, the data's out there, but the aim is to improve student learning, safety, and well-being, right? And at the end of the day, that's really the goal and why we're all here. So Jenny, oh, there we go. So why this matters now, we're seeing lots of increased classroom distractions, disengagement from academics, lots of rising concerns around academic focus, social conflict and cyber issues. I can just tell you, as someone who is on the discipline side of things, and we have to go through and try to navigate what kids are saying to each other on Instagram and Snapchat, and things automatically delete, and I'll speak for myself, like woefully undertrained in how to do that work. It's really difficult. It's really difficult. And then the statistics around mental health and anxiety that we see, with anxiety increasing, like skyrocketing, it really feels urgent at this point, in my mind. So we think a district-wide policy that's clear can provide equity and consistency. So. Yeah, and just to kind of reiterate, I think there's a little bit of a duplicate of a slide here, but one of the things that I've been looking at a lot is really two things. Really, the goal here is, number one, is my goal is really to take this out of the hands of the teachers, right? We know that there is uneven enforcement in the current policies that we had at Laguna, and I think that's just human nature, right? At a certain point, we're going to go, I can't tell the student for the 100th time to put it away, so if you're going to be on your phone, you can take your 0, right? And then the next class, oh, I got to be on my phone in this class. And what it does is it creates this power struggle, right? And we don't want to put our teachers in that position, because what ultimately we're trying to teach and build relationships, and it's an unnecessary power struggle. And really what what I've been seeing in some of the data around it, I mean, it's, the phones are truly an addiction, similar to gambling, similar to drugs, those types of things. On the next slide, I think this is it. Here we go. So 50% of kids get 237 notifications per day. That is 237 hits of dopamine, right? That's what that is. And that's what creates the addiction. So now if I'm in front of a classroom and I'm trying to teach, at best, I can probably give you, if I got an amazing lesson, 10, 15 hits of dopamine in that block period, in that 45-minute period. We can't compete, right? These things, these social media apps are specifically designed to hook me too, right? I got 2 phones in my pocket. I'm just as bad as the kids. So I'm not, it's, you know, it's a real thing. You know, just some of these stats, and this is from Phone Free Schools movement. So where these graphics are from, but we can see, you know, the rates of school loneliness have increased twofold since 2012. We know that phones prevent face-to-face communication, right? Like how many times have we walked into a room and there's a group of kids at a table and they're just scrolling on their phones or playing games. So, you know, 3 hours per day of social media. And I think on the next slide here, it shows that, you know, oftentimes I think it's average of 43 minutes per day on their phone at school. So that's half a block period. That's a full period at Laguna High School. You know, we look at in the bottom left-hand corner, right? 22% of students have seriously considered suicide in the past year. 10% have attempted. So, and I think too, like going back to kind of some of the safety elements of the social media and the cyberbullying and that stuff. I mean, you know, when I was in school, I could have something super embarrassing happen to me, and in the next week, nobody would remember it. But I can't tell you how many times I hear conversations or people pulling up videos from 4 or 5 years ago. So these things that happen follow students throughout. And so I think that's really where we see, like in the top left corner, right, that 134% increase in anxiety or 100%, 106% increase in depression. Like, it's just constant, right? And so, you know, a third of teens are exposed to pornography during the school day. So, you know, these are things that happen, and tech does an amazing job with all the software that we have to try and stop these things. But, you know, I mean, the kids are savvy. They're always going to be ahead of the curve on this stuff. And same with the technology companies. So there's, you know, there's more to this. I'm going to call it a cell phone policy, but most of the recommendations I see are smartwatches, AirPods, anything with a Bluetooth connection to go into it. But there's a lot more that has to go into this than just we're locking up the cell phones, right? So the first thing is the law, right? So Assembly Bill 3216 says we have to have a cell phone policy by July 1, 2026 that restricts the phone use. It's pretty vague, okay? Pretty vague. On the next slide, I'm going to go through some of the exceptions. 504 and IEP accommodations obviously need to be monitored, right? We see it in 504s all the time. Student can listen to music to reduce anxiety. There are ways around using your phone on that, right? All our students are equipped with a one-to-one Chromebook. Emergency access protocols. I think this is going to be the #1 thing that we need to look at. Obviously, in an emergency, families want to be able to get in touch with their kids. Totally understandable. General logistics, right? Like, aside from what is the policy, how are we going to do it? I won't speak for Chuck, but with a school of 1,400 students, his logistics are going to be a lot more challenging than mine. But I'm probably going to have to spend the first hour of my day dealing with cell phones every day, right? So these are things we have to figure out. And then, you know, front office communication protocols. If the phones are away and families aren't able to, you know, text or call their kids, everything's got to run through the office. And so we got to make sure that we're efficient in getting messages out and answering the phones. And what do we do when, you know, when somebody's sick and they're not at the front anymore? And, you know, all of those things matter. So there's a lot more to it than just let's put the phones away. So like I said, the Assembly bill, this is the exceptions paraphrased, right? Generally speaking, it says we need to have a phone policy that restricts the use. And so 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are really just the, you know, when students can have the phone. So number 1, in the case of an emergency or in response to a perceived threat or danger, and I'm going to follow up on the next slide with this because there's been an amendment to that. And I think this is a really, really important one. When a licensed physician or surgeon determines the possession of a phone is necessary for the health of a student, or it's written into the IEP, right? So again, those accommodations. So next slide, please. Back in September 4th, 2025, there was Assembly Bill 962, which amended the previous one that basically says a school can keep the prohibition of a smartphone in case of emergency or perceived threat, as long as it's written in the comprehensive school safety plan, right? So for example, let's say we have a situation where we have to lock down. You know, if we have this laid out in our comprehensive school safety plan that phones stay locked up because we want active attention on the teachers, we don't want to draw unnecessary noise, whatever it may be, right? Like, so as long as we're very explicit in our comprehensive school safety plan, you know, there's some things we can do here. So, and this graphic is really just, sorry, that's really hard to read and small. But protecting students by putting phones away in a crisis. So students are going to focus on adult interactions. Phones can compromise hiding in lockdown positions. Emergency communication channels, we want them to stay clear, right? So if we have, you know, 1,300 students calling and texting, it could jam the airways. That's way above my knowledge base, but you know, that's what the research says. And then we know too from past things, right? Like when there's an emergency, you know, we always say, don't come rushing to the school, right? The crowds make it worse and that sort of thing. So, you know, as we look at this, there's a lot of things to consider. And I think it's just because of the statistics that we've shown, right? Like this is where we want to start the conversation. So on the next slide, what we've done on the El Molino campus, so, you know, we started this discussion, I think back in August, kind of telling the board what our cell phone policies were. In December, I brought it to staff meetings and our AIA school site council meetings to discuss. I can tell you just from my conversations at site council and with parents and just kind of casual conversations of like, you know, hey, we're kind of looking at this. What are your thoughts? I think there's, you know, a lot of support for it, but there's also a lot of concern about like an emergency. How do I get a hold of my kid? How do I, you know, those things. And it's not just going to be a change for the students either, right? It's a change for families and how they communicate. And so we also need to be really sensitive about that and do it thoughtfully if this is something we decide to do. So, you know, that's where kind of we're at on our campus, and I'll kick it over to Chuck to take it from here.
So I want to share somewhat a similar timeline at Annalee, and then most of my presentation is really going to be about feedback from Annalee staff about how this might work and what needs to be in place to make it work well. As Greg mentioned, we had a conversation already with the board. We presented some information or had a conversation about the Anxious Generation book, Jonathan Haidt's book, about some of the alarming information that we're seeing from our young people, really nationwide and worldwide. And many of us who've been in education for a while have had a little bit of a change of heart. I think I, until relatively recently, was really in favor of technology use and responsible, teaching kids to be responsible users of cell phones and so forth. And I no longer believe that's really possible or responsible. So a couple things I want to point out. We've engaged site council with this work. We had a site survey, staff survey last year. You can see the results there. The bar on the right is in strongly in favor. So how big of a priority do you think it is that we have 100% cell phone free classrooms across campus? We also, as a result of that, did an initial policy revision. I think you guys know about that one. We worked with West County Health, our partners in the Wellness Center here, as well as at the Laguna campus, to put together a grant proposal to think about what it would look like to make this happen. Those folks are very much in favor. We haven't identified funding as yet, but we do think there's a good chance we could offset some of the cost of doing this well. That date is today, I think. This conversation, and then actually it's tomorrow. We have a site council. Again, the topic is the cell phone use. So next one, please. I want to talk a little bit about our recent faculty meeting in this space just last week, and some of the feedback I heard from staff at that time. We started sort of with this provocation: what if these things were not an issue in our schools? And then next slide. These 7 input areas. So to create a bell-to-bell phone-free campus, what systems, tools, or changes would we need around blank? And then the categories are student communication and buy-in, parent and family communication, logistics and enforcement, alternative technology, staff support, special circumstances, and academic and instructional shifts. So I'd like to walk you through that feedback from staff, just to give you a sense of what staff thinks is important. And before I do, I want to say a couple things just to reiterate what Greg said about why this matters so much and why it matters now. I really do think we're at an inflection point. As I mentioned, over the last several years, we've seen increasing evidence that unrestricted cell phone use during the school day undermines students' ability to focus, to connect, to learn, takes a real toll on mental health and belonging. So this isn't really about nostalgia or control. It's about responding responsibly to what we know now. What makes this moment powerful is that staff sees it too. There's an unusually strong alignment among teachers that a bell-to-bell phone-free day would meaningfully improve learning conditions for students if it's done clearly, consistently, and with a unified leadership. So that level of professional consensus is rare, and I think it creates a real opportunity. This is also deeply aligned with who we say we are. I think a phone-free school day supports high expectations for learning, creates safer and more focused environments, strengthens the sense of joy, belonging, and human connection that we want students to experience at Annalee. And it asks us to design a school day that protects students' attention and well-being, not as a punishment, but as an act of care. So the feedback you'll see reflects both urgency and readiness. Faculty are asking for clarity, consistency, and systems that allow them to teach and students to learn. This is a chance to make a values-driven decision that is on brand for our district, on mission for our school, and genuinely better for kids. So with that context, next slide. I'm going to show you what we heard from staff in each of the categories, and one of them I've actually spread out into 2. But with respect to student buy-in, staff shared that students are likely to comply if expectations are universal. So a lot of students have shared, I'm in as long as the rules are the same for everybody else. As Greg mentioned, it's uneven across our campuses now, a little bit tough to get students to buy into that system when it's going to be different in the next class and different from their peers somewhere else. They're likely to comply if the rationale is clearly explained: brain health, attention, and learning. And faculty really believe that the buy-in will follow from experience once we start doing it. The framing really matters. It can be part of our school identity and culture, and it cannot be a classroom by classroom decision. Next one, parent and family communication. Parent understanding is key to this. Greg mentioned this also. Key messages to families include, this policy is designed to support health and safety and learning. Communication will still be possible with students through our school systems, just like our ancestors did. You call the office. So that's still possible. Faculty recommend clear, proactive communication, community forums, advanced explanation of emergency protocols. And I want to say one comment about that. Experts are super clear about this. They recommend that students not have phones during emergencies. And in fact, the AB is at 1362. I always forget the numbers, but they amended that. Originally, the language said that students would be allowed to have access to their phones in an emergency. They amended that language because the experts said, you know, that's what we don't want. We don't want everybody on the phone when there's something going down. We want them to be listening to the PA. And I have to say, even though it's super uncomfortable to talk about, but in Uvalde, people died because kids' phones were ringing. So we don't want that. I think it's safer not to have phones, even in an emergency, and it will be uncomfortable for some of our parents, but I think if we can message effectively to them, they'll understand that. So clear, proactive communication, community forums, advanced explanation of emergency protocols. Enforcement and consistency. This is really the strongest area of faculty consensus. Enforcement has to be centralized and visible, led by administration and campus supervisors. Teachers shouldn't have to carry the primary enforcement responsibility. Greg mentioned this too. I think I get why teachers give up on enforcing the phone policy. You want to have strong relationships with your students, and it's exhausting. You don't want to fight this fight every day, particularly if you're a younger teacher, a new teacher, somebody really learning to master classroom management in your class. This is a really tough call today when, as Greg mentioned, you've got this highly addictive device in every kid's pocket. That's too much to ask. Phones must be physically separated from students for effectiveness. That shows up again and again in the research. They need to be away and out of sight. And consistent consequences are critical. Next one, please. So high-level systems and logistics, some sort of structured system is required for success. And so just to be clear, I'm talking here about pouches or some kind of centralized storage system. There's got to be some tool that we give to staff to make this work. Greg mentioned this one already as well. The policy's got to include not only phones, but smart watches, smart glasses, Bluetooth connected earbuds, tablets, all of those things. We're already working on student-owned devices. We think it's really important to be very consistent about that. We need clear procedures for what happens when students come onto campus, what happens when they violate the policy, how does checkout work? How does it work when we have some students leaving for sixth period and some students leaving at seventh period? We're going to have some logistics to figure out there, but there have been a group already working on some ideas there. Next one, please. We will probably need some additional tools. So our Chromebooks remain our primary instructional device, but many departments already use phones to supplement that. For example, many of our art classes have students document work in progress and upload that to Google Classroom with their cell phones. We need help there. Cameras, scanners, maybe some classroom headphones, other non-personal devices. We may need some additional landlines or radios to call different classrooms. And of course, we may need specialized devices for certain programs. Next one, please. Faculty would like clear expectations and strong leadership around this, consistent follow through when the policy is not enforced. What would be helpful to them include more shared research and messaging around the why, and training on de-escalation and enforcement conversations. Greg mentioned this one already. There are some special circumstances we know about that we're going to have to make accommodations around. There are some instances where IEPs or 504s mention devices. There are some medical needs that need to be served by some of these devices, but those exceptions need to be limited. They need to be clearly documented. They need to be case by case, and the emergency communication protocols have to be explicit and trusted. Faculty expect a significant instructional impact here. Fewer distractions, increased engagement and focus, lower teacher frustration. We think there's minimal instructional downside to this and a strong belief that teaching and learning will improve. So overall, Annalee faculty see strong benefits in a phone-free school day. There is broad faculty support for bell-to-bell phone-free campus. This is viewed as beneficial for student focus and learning, mental health and well-being, classroom culture and engagement. They feel success depends on consistency, clarity, and administrative enforcement. So I think the feedback you've seen makes it clear that we're ready as a school. Staff is not asking whether this is worth doing. They're asking us to do it well. They're prepared to partner in the work of planning, communicating, and problem solving so that this shift is thoughtful, humane, and effective. And that means the community outreach with families, clear communication with students, and logistical preparation is necessary to make exceptions consistent and enforceable from day one. I think it's also important to name the moment we're in. It's never been more challenging to be an educator. Students come to us with real attention and mental health challenges, and with an increasingly wide differences in academic preparation. And that's layered onto what's already arguably one of the hardest jobs a human being can do, which is teaching. A bell-to-bell phone-free campus gives us a rare opportunity to remove a major barrier and to do that work better. We're ready to do whatever it takes to implement this shift beginning next year because we believe it will materially improve learning, mental health, and students' sense of belonging at Annalee. And to ground this conversation in the classroom, I'd like to invite Jason Carpenter to share his perspective. Jason is probably known to most of you. He's a social science teacher at Annalee, a graduate of El Molino High School. He brings both the teacher's daily experience and a district graduate's long view of why this moment matters. Jason?
This place is rocking on a Wednesday. Democracy in action right here, isn't it? Yes, we're just missing students, right? This is usually the kiss of death when I say I'm going to be short, right? So just be ready to like hook me, right? Couple minutes, 5-6 minutes. I want to commend both of you. I thought you really laid out the case eloquently in a very organized way. But you also expressed, even though you weren't necessarily trying to, just how difficult your job is, right? And so I commend you for taking on this task, because it is very doable, but it is not going to happen automatically, and it's not going to be easy. So I thank you very much. Part of the reason why I'm standing here is because I have at various moments been, bending Chuck's ear for more than 2 years now on this very issue. I have been I'm not a devotee, but a student of Jonathan Haidt for almost 20 years now, long before he wrote The Anxious Generation, which is sort of the Bible, if you will, on this particular issue. And he's leading the charge on this issue, not just in the United States, but all over the world. All over the world. Several nations have, full bans on phones in school. We have more than 26 states who have done full bans already. So this movement, the only thing, and this is quibbling. You said we're at an inflection point. We are past the inflection point. We've been there for a while. I did want to say this as well. I'm not speaking formally on behalf of teachers, but I talk to teachers every day. So I hear what they have to say, and I feel confident that what I'm saying most teachers would be on board with. And every teacher on this campus, and I would imagine on your campus as well, knows, first of all, they love their students. We love our kids. We know how lucky we are to be here. We have great kids. We have a great community. We have great schools. We have great admin. We have great leadership across the board. This is not a the sky is falling moment. This is, we are recognizing fixable issues. And if we address those issues, if we have the courage to address those issues, that we can make the experience, the teaching experience and the learning experience that we have that's so strong here, we can make it even better. I also like Chuck's sort of challenge, even though it was quite subtle, that we have an opportunity to sort of set a trend here, right? Not a lot of schools in Sonoma County have jumped out on this issue. I think they're behind the curve. I think they eventually will. And I think it behooves us to do that. Jonathan Haidt argues that if you're a school district and you claim to care about the mental health of your students, but you're not willing to ban phones, he says that you are standing on the back of a whale and fishing for minnows. Now, he didn't invent this. He borrowed this from, the Polynesian culture. And the quick interpretation of that is you're fishing for minnows, but you're standing on this whale. But really, the meaning is sometimes it's better to do the big thing than to do 1,000 little things. And that's really what it is that we're proposing to do here, to do this big thing, which is quite doable, but in the face of cynicism and fatalism that exists in our society, and it trickles down to students. These problems are just too big. The world's problems are too vast. An individual person or organization can't change things. And I know my colleagues encourage our students every day to fight against that cynicism and that fatalism, and to believe that participating, that engaging, right, that organizing is a way to actually affect change, not only their lives, but the lives of people around them. Jonathan Haidt talks about he describes them as the 4 foundational harms. Now, the phones didn't create these 4 foundational harms. They just exacerbate them. Social deprivation, sleep deprivation, attention fragmentation, and addiction. These things are all very, very detrimental to the health of our students. And phones and all of the applications that go along with those phones, they make those problems worse. So if we have an opportunity, right? And I was talking to Chuck about this the other day, and he said this, actually he said this to the staff, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, that schools are in a unique position in society to affect this kind of change. Where else can you create a safe space where phones aren't there at the ready for 5 or 6 hours? School is really the only place where you can do that. And I think that we should take advantage of that. It's not just schools, but in our classrooms. I and my colleagues talk to our students about this all the time. We live in a world that is divided. We don't talk to each other. We don't listen to each other, partly because of social media, right? But in those 4 walls in our classroom, we have the opportunity to change the rules, right? You go outside and you get caught up in all of that, but inside of these hallways and inside of our classrooms, we can engage in civil discourse. We can talk to each other. We can listen to each other. We can recognize that there are people in the world who think about things differently than I do, and I don't have to see them as the enemy. Having phones out of the way really makes that process much easier to do. I think as far as that goes, I think it's important to note that banning phones, or at least limiting phones, is one of the only truly bipartisan issues there is in the United States. It does not matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. This is not a left or right issue. And you can see that in the halls of Congress. They're not exactly lining up to write bills, right? But when they talk about this issue, they don't fight along partisan lines on this issue. So I think that is really to our benefit. We don't have to take on those social and cultural divisions that are so clear everywhere else on this particular phone issue. So I'll just finish with Mr. Haidt again. He argues that all students deserve schools that help them learn, that help them to foster and build meaningful and deep relationships. And to grow into mentally healthy young adults. And if that is our mission, then all students deserve phone-free schools. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason. I'm so glad you were here tonight to share your thoughts with that. I think it's very helpful. Thank you, Chuck, and thank you, Greg, as well. Very informative. I kind of want to open this up, I think, to some conversation and some maybe questions or from the board, and then even from the community if we so desire. Anybody have any thoughts on this?
Well, unfortunately, Jeannie and we grew up in the no cell phone age in high school. And it is, but as being a teacher, having been in the classroom, even in the middle school, phones were a problem. And it's so easy for kids to get lost in them. So I have more to say, but I won't be able to say it.
A couple of things. I have a kid who's a senior this year, so I'm like I'm living in the middle of this. Smartphones are a drug. The addictive part of it is you can't be underestimated. I'm really, really grateful for this initiative and for the thoughtful, careful way that everyone here is involved, like you two principals especially. Jason, thank you. Getting buy-in, taking the time to get staff to contribute ideas so that it'll stick. The only other thing I have to say is that I really am jealous that this didn't happen a couple years ago because it really would have helped my kid.
Yeah. I'm gonna try and say what I was gonna say. We had an eighth. What a cute doggy.
Funny, ironic. Oh, excuse me, I really have to get this.
Well, that helped me. Thank you.
Snap me back.
So I taught at Hillcrest. We had an 8th grade student, my student council vice president, one of the strongest 8th grade kids I'd ever had commit suicide because of harassment on a cell phone.
Mm.
And it was devastating.
Mm. Mm.
So anything you can do, I'd appreciate it. Save someone else.
I know for myself, Linda was right. We both went to school here, and I firmly believe that the human discourse that I was able to engage in with people from different thoughts and different viewpoints and teachers with different thoughts and viewpoints made me part of who I am today. And I know for a fact if I'd had a cell phone or an iPad or whatever, that would not have happened. And so thank you for saying that, because I really firmly believe that. I'll never forget my American democracy class and sitting in Mr. Gordon's class, who my mom considered was a communist, by the way, which he was maybe more of a socialist, but and she didn't want me to be in his class. And I told her, no, I want to disagree with that man. And it was the most thought-provoking class I've ever had, probably even more so than college. And he was teaching us about American democracy by having that discourse. And I think some of it he engaged in on purpose, not maybe even his own viewpoint. But so I can see where it really, really can make a difference. Even my kids really didn't have cell phones in high school because it's been that many years since they were here. And I'm so grateful for the work you guys done. Something that I would like to recommend, and I know you've got people working on this, but I really think that we should put together a district committee that includes staff, board members, students, parents, and administrators, so that everybody has a say, everybody gets to have some input. And if we want to make this happen next year, then we need to maybe get that moving sooner than later. And it needs to include both campuses, not just Annalee, not just Laguna, or AIA. We've got to, really engage. And I know for one, I'd be more than happy to serve as a board rep on that. If there's one other person that wants to do that too, we could do that. But I think we have to have, because this presentation needs to be out there for parents. When we first talked about this a couple of years ago, and first put a policy in place, I must have gotten 10 phone calls and I don't know how many emails from parents really upset about the fact that their kids were going to need their phones in an emergency. I'm actually glad that the legislature has amended their policy so that that's not an issue. It can't be an issue now. As much as people might not like it, they're going to have to maybe live with that. And I understand the argument. And I think, unfortunately, some of these very unfortunate situations that have happened out in our country with these school shootings has brought some of this to light as to what really works well and what doesn't. And I firmly believe that phones ringing and people talking on phones isn't helping the situation. So I really think, though, we need to include our students. We need to include our parents. This is going to be difficult. And you're right. I don't think I think it can happen. I just think that we're going to have to change some mindsets. And I think you can probably see here that you got our support for making this happen. I just think we have to find the right way to make it happen. And if we need resources, to try to find some resources, because we don't have a lot of those resources right now. So that's my thoughts. Rio, do you have anything?
Sure. Yeah, so I enjoy it. Thanks. Thanks for the presentation and also the feedback from a teacher too.
And I agree that I think that a committee would be a great idea. Ensure, try and get as much input from all. And also, I mean, it sounds like there's 26 states that have this as well. There's tons of districts out there that have it. And hopefully we can get a lot of feedback from those as well. Just like I do want to touch base on the safety thing and during any emergency as well. And that is a concern. And I recall, yeah, because I have a kid here now as well, and a couple years ago too, and there was a lockdown. I don't know, 4 years ago or something. And it was great to be able to ensure, like, hey, are you okay? Great. And just like we didn't get a lot of info from the district itself. So if there's going to be where kids don't have access, then we have to give a lot more info during those times to ensure that, like, as a parent, that like updates about what's going on. And I know it's hard because these are things that are hard to plan for, and there's a lot going on during those times. So, I know we have a policy about how we handle those types of things, but like specifically, if we take those ways to get in contact with them away, then like that needs to be strengthened in order to make up for that, to give some peace of mind. Because the hard thing about back in the days when just like we were growing up, our parents didn't hear that there was a lockdown at a school per se, right? They would hear it when we came home or something like that, right? But now, like, just like they're going to hear about it, as it's happening. And so, yeah, and so I think we need to be aware of that. It's like I am also curious about how, and perhaps this is something that we can get from other districts and things like that, but like with the Chromebooks and things and things like that, if like that becomes a bit of a replacement for a cell phone. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but you can do a lot of stuff on those. And I don't know how prevalent they currently are in classrooms, but I am curious if like some of that can still, be there because of that.
Some pretty bright kids who can figure that stuff out.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess, oh yeah, do you have a comment on that?
Can you come up here? Because we have people online and they can't hear you if you're not on the, that's all right. I'll call on you next.
So, so we've got a parent. Questions at the ready, right? And every parent in the district is going to have the same questions. So that committee, right, that you're talking about, it's essential. We have to do it, right? But I wanted to say that we aren't inventing the wheel here, right? This has been done lots of other places. And every problem or every inconvenience that comes about, like from the perspective of parents, it's inconvenient that I can't, communicate the way that I used to, right? All of these things pale in comparison to the good that will come from the changes that are coming, that will, come on the other side of this. And I think that's really the messaging, right? And I think we have to be ready for parents to be pissed off, right? They're going to be angry and not be defensive and not be, understand you're a parent, you love your kid, right? You want what's best for them, and to convince them that so do we. So do we. This is not about controlling your kid. This is not about punishing your kid. That is not, I thought you guys made that case really well. That is not what this is about at all. This is a policy that is being pushed by mountains of data that we just can't ignore any longer. Right. So I just
The-
wanted to say that.
That's okay. The other thing I think we have to be careful of is that we can't make this committee about whether or not we put this policy into place. Number one, it's state law. Number two, so we're not inviting people to attend to disagree with us and to argue that point. We need people that are going to be on board that can help us set this straight and set it right and do it right the first time.
Yeah, great point. I know that on back to school night that most of the students or the students, most of the parents, some of them were students, but the parents, many of them, they're like, what are you guys waiting for?
Yeah,
Help
exactly.
us, help me,
So
please.
go ahead, come on up to the podium and
I just had one more thing too, is like, I am curious too, what our partner districts as well are doing, and if we can, if like it's possible to have it align as well, then it can ease the whole process, because that's what they have been doing before, and then they come here and it's the same thing, and so it's not like, oh, it's changed, or like, oh, now they're taking it away, but that would be great.
that's a good, that's a good point. It's like something that Chris, I think, can look into and ask.
I got answers for you on a couple things. So.
Okay, great. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kristen McClung. I am a former student. I attended Annalee, Twin Hills, also Summerfield Waldorf School. So I'm really for the no screens or any of that. I think getting education to the parents so the parents can properly support the teachers, because I'm all for just take the phones. Like, I just don't think, I mean, but I know some parents have an issue with that. So, and then that doesn't help support the teachers at the schools, because they're telling their kids like, oh, why can't you have your phone? And it becomes a problem. So I think educating the parents on how detrimental screens are, especially at young ages, and then so they are better informed and they can tell their students. Because I feel like having the schools and the teachers and stuff having to remove the phones from the students and have it be a battle is not, it's not their battle. It's not their battle. It should be the parents should be enforcing it, be like, at school, this is something that happens, and you get it at whatever time or however we do the phones. I'm not really into like paying for a lot of money on those pouches or something like that, because I was hearing about some of the pouches. I think that we probably should do some more research on like less expensive ways to do these things, because I went to school and without phones, and if there was emergencies, I somehow found out, and my parents could get the message to me. So I think it's possible, and I think it should be done. So, and I would be happy to be on that board.
Reach out to, leave your name with Chuck and he can reach out to you.
Okay. I will. Okay.
Thank you. I think that's really great. Thank you for being here and speaking your mind. I appreciate it very much. Oh yeah, Julie, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Please.
Julie McClelland. And I gave feedback at our staff thing too. I think the biggest thing is going to be the addiction part of this. And I think it's the parents and the kids. I think it's going to be really ugly for the first 6 or 8 weeks. I think it's going to be a big old fight. And so I think that's where we need like wellness center, we need groups, we need like, it's going to be a consistent message. Like, it can't be a just once and you think everybody's going to go along. And I know we don't think that, but addictive behavior, if you've done any 12-step, like, right, it's a long term. And where it gets taken away, I agree with what the mom said, like where that gets taken away or where the phone is put is going to be really important. If it's in their backpack, it's over. You've lost where that goes and where that lives. My concern though is if it has to stay at home, we have kids that live 2 hours away, and if you're driving home and you crash, like, I want you to be able to call for help. So we're in a little bit different, like everybody doesn't live within 20 minutes of our campus. So but I think the addiction part is going to be massive.
I hear you on that. I also want to just make a point that I think we also have to, Paige, you can come up. I think we have to, as staff people, administrators, teachers, we have to abide by the same rules. And teachers have to agree to that too, because it can't be, you can't, but I can, because that's just not going to fly with teenagers. And we all know that.
What I wanted to bring up is just little bit of a concern about the committee process. What I want to voice is that I hope that we use the committee process as a vehicle to figure out what issues we need to address, as opposed to trying to write policy. Because I think that even though members of those committees may be well-intentioned, the fact that they don't work in the school, they aren't in my classroom, they're not working with kids in that kind of particular vein, I would worry about them creating the policy that I then have to follow that isn't going to actually function. So I'm welcome to, and I think that we do need to hear from parents and other stakeholders, and that we need to hear what their concerns are so that we can address those, whether it's through education, whether it's through actually like the shape of our policy. But I do want us to shy away a little bit from creating policy in that particular venue, because I think that we will end up paying the price for that in a way that I don't think is going to actually be helpful.
I agree with you, Paige, because I think you're right. It's not our job as a committee or even the board. I mean, it's our administrators who will write policy. And I think we probably can get some policy from other people who've actually had this work. So I think I think part of it is just getting the stakeholders' input and then on how to formulate this.
Fair enough. I'm just a big believer in let's say it so that it actually happens that way instead of assuming everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Chris, I think you want to add some things.
Yeah, I know there's always a lot of information within the board agenda. I try to lay this out. Just to be clear, we have an adopted policy. Okay. The policy has to be fully implemented, and it's not an option to create a committee. It's a requirement to have stakeholder engagement. CSBA, we're very thankful that we have our partnership and contract. We don't create policies that aren't recommended by the people that have governed school districts, the attorneys, and the folks in powers that be, unless it's absolutely necessary to modify something in terms of district practice. So the policy that's attached to the item was adopted in September. It is in alignment with the July 1, 2026 requirement. We haven't yet met and fulfilled the requirements of having that ed partner engagement process. When I chose this option, because typically, as you're aware, CSBA will give you multiple options. There's essentially two policies that districts that have a CSBA contract are going to be looking at. This current policy, which is essentially mobile communication devices shall be turned off during instruction time, versus mobile communication devices shall be turned off throughout the duration of the school day. That's essentially the difference between option A and B that they gave us. The principals referenced that we had an initial conversation in August. The board did the first read and the second read in September. We knew that this was going to be a process that we wanted to engage in the spring. So I just wanted to make sure that there was clarity on the requirement, the plan, and I absolutely agree with all the things that were said tonight and really appreciate, our team, and Jason's words were so powerful. So next steps to come, and we'll keep y'all posted. So.
Great.
Thank you for that wonderful discussion and all the input. I think it's really important. And we will definitely, there'll be more to come, I'm sure, on this item. Next, we are going to move to a first reading of the recommended revisions of CSBA November 25, 2025 updates for policies and regulations. It's just a first reading, so it's not does not require a motion, but we'll let Chris explain this. Thank you.
Yeah, and typically, we'll answer any specific questions as best we can. These seem to be all pretty straightforward, and it's kind of interesting that I placed this item right after that one, since that does have an impact on policies, the discussion we just had. So are there any questions on the first reading of any of these policies? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we will move this item to next month to vote on. Number 4, consideration of approval of a resolution 13, 2025, or January 2025, 26 to establish class size and special education programs for the 26-27 school year. Chris? Oh, that's right. Thank you. We need a motion on this. Thank you, Linda. A second, please. Thank you, Rio.
So this is an annual item that for the past few years we brought in February. And what this does is it sets a cap for special education programs so that we have the ability to deny an incoming interdistrict transfer request if we're at 23 on average for our RSP teachers. So we wanted to bring this forward 1 month early in light of some of the changes that we were seeing around the county with interdistrict transfers.
Does anybody have any questions from the board?
That's a roll call too.
Right, any discussion? Okay, with that, it's a roll call. I'll let Jessica make roll call.
Trustee Gutierrez, Trustee Helton, Trustee Buckner, Trustee Fernandez.
Aye, and make sure you mark Sean absent. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, consideration of approval of the SARC reports for Laguna and Anley. Can I get a motion on this, please? Thank you so much. Lewis, second. Thank you, Linda. Chris?
Yeah, it's an annual requirement. I know our principals have done a lot of thoughtful work in gathering the information. There's also a component of the safety plan, so I want to thank Jenny for her contributions. Were you all planning to speak to this, or do you just want to answer questions? I know there's a lot of information.
A lot of information.
Yeah. Are there any particular questions around? Yeah.
77 some odd pages.
Yeah, it's one of those fun DTS platforms. So, okay.
Okay. If there's no discussion or questions, we will move to approval. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Next is consideration of approval of Resolution 14, January 25, 26 regarding African American Black History Month. Can I get a motion, please? Thank you, Linda. Second. Thank you, Lewis. Chris?
It's just continuing the good work of our newly branded ABC collaborative efforts there. So we're just, excited to continue to acknowledge and demonstrate our commitment to, safe and recognized equitable environment for all folks. So.
Thank you so much. Is there any discussion, any questions?
Are we going to do anything?
So yeah, I'm going to be checking in with Anita in terms of what has been discussed and planned at the ABC level. Folks that have attended our ABC last meeting, if y'all want to weigh in, but Anita was unable to make my check-in last week because she was ill. So we're gonna touch base. So we definitely want. I know that that's important, and we've tried to make sure that we've acknowledged at least some type of event or awareness, communication, things like that. But I got to talk with Anita.
Thank you so much. Any other comments, questions? So it's another resolution, so we're going to have a roll call vote.
Trustee Gutierrez, Trustee Helton, Trustee Buckner, Trustee Fernandez.
Aye. Consideration of approval of an MOU amendment for West Sonoma County Consortium regarding preschool funding law. Can I get a motion, please? Thank you, Linda. Second. Thank you, Rio. Chris?
So similar to the amendments that were brought before you in our last meeting, this is to change the funding distribution model based on, the prior year's ways that we billed for usage. So this In 26-27 is going to a 90-10, 90 usage base, 10 ADA based, and then moving to 95 usage and 5 ADA. Very similar to what we changed in terms of the other classroom structures. This is part of just really getting our consortium right and making sure that the expansion doesn't have an unequitable effect on how some of our districts are billed. Because when we first expanded in the previous and current funding distribution model, there were winners and losers. And so this really is credit to the work of our member districts, because this doesn't impact the district's role or funding revenues or expenditures for operation of the consortium.
Thank you so much. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to business services. And we have a consideration of approval of the 2024-25 audit report. Can I get a motion, please? Thanks, Linda. Second? Thank you, Louis. Andrew.
All right, good evening. We have Austin with Christy White and Associates, who will be presenting our audit report for 24-25. We had no findings, which is good to report. And it really goes into the efforts and a lot of work that making sure that everything is done correctly, at the school side, everybody providing all the information and backup for the auditors to review. So it's really a great team effort to get this done, and we'll start it again this spring. But at that, I will let Austin go ahead.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I'll be going over the 24-25 audit report. To start, I would like to go over kind of our audit process. We begin with our interim audit during spring. This will be when we mostly test for internal control testing, such as cash disbursements, cash receipts. We do interviews and kind of get an understanding of the district's policies and programs. We also begin state compliance testing as well with the school sites on stuff such as attendance, ADA, Prop 28, SARCs, as we just talked about earlier. And then once later in the year, when the unaudited actuals have been board approved, we then begin our year-end audit testing, where we begin substantive testing such as financial statement, accounts, cash, AR, and AP.
Hey, Austin, excuse me for a second. Can you increase your volume? We're having a hard time hearing you. Thank you.
Let's see. Hopefully I can.
Austin, when you moved forward, it sounded a little better, so you might just have to move closer to your computer.
Okay, we'll go with that then. And then I'll also kind of talk a little louder as well. If we could go to the next slide, please. I also wanted to go over audit responsibility. The district's responsibility is to design and maintain effective internal controls, preparations of financial statements, and to prepare and manage financial activity for continued operations. As far as auditor's responsibility goes, we are going to provide an opinion, which comes down to reasonable assurance that the financial statements are materially correct. And by doing this, we conduct the audit in accordance with GAAS and other generally accepted audit procedures. If you can go to the next slide, please. As we discussed earlier, we gave an unmodified overall opinion, which is the best opinion to get. That means that there were no material weaknesses identified in internal control, no significant deficiencies identified either. As for federal awards, we went over the Title I Part A and special education clusters. Again, unmodified opinion, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies identified either. And finally, when it comes to state awards, unmodified again. So it was a perfect audit year. Next slide, please. I did want to highlight GASB 101, which was a new update that we had to do a restatement for to the beginning net position. It came out to about 2.5 million. And GASB 101 had to do with compensated absences, which includes a portion of sick leave as of 6/30/2025. Next slide, please. And then I'm going to open up for questions, but before I do, I want to give a huge shout out to Andrew and his team for helping us along the way with the audit. We really couldn't have done it as nicely without you guys.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you, Andrew. Are there any questions?
It means.
He's there.
Can you hear us, Austin?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Sure. Can you like restate like what the restatement means? Like,
Yes. So GASB 101, we had to make a one-time restatement. It has to do with it updates how school districts account for and report employee leave benefits. There's no impact on cash position, future payments, or budget, but the district now has to record a liability when leave is earned if that leave will accumulate or is payable upon employee separation.
That help?
So it just affects the accounting behind it. It doesn't really affect any of future payments or cash or anything.
yeah, so it's just like you have to withhold a bit or like say that there is cash there in order to pay out, like if they have to, right?
Yes.
Is that kind of what that is? And then like where does that get withheld?
It's considered a long-term liability, which we come up with a number through either actuarial studies or through an internal calculation, which is what I believe we used here.
Yeah, we don't really put that into our accounting system. It's more of a paper. Here's what it is. If we had to, that there would be this liability should things happen, and that would have to get paid out. But it's not impacting our current cash or current. Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Andrew. That's a good explanation. Does anybody have any other questions for Austin? Thank you, Austin, so much.
Thank you.
Can I get oh, you had a motion. I'm sorry. Okay, so all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thanks so much. Motion passed.
All right. Thank you, Austin, for staying on and
No
presenting.
problem. Thank you. Have a great night, y'all.
Thank you. I want to just say congratulations, Andrew, with no findings. That's really huge. I know not in the recent.
Accounting wise, more paperwork wise of put the right dates, get things
Exactly,
signed.
putting the right thing in the right. Graphic study update, and I'll let you introduce Rob.
Yeah, so each year we have been looking here.
Hi, good evening, and apologies if I'm speaking out of turn, but Jenny, can you unmute the main feed? Because I can't hear anything happening in the room right now.
Speak up or get closer to your microphone or something,
Okay.
because we're having a hard time hearing here.
Okay, no, is this better?
Thank you.
Yes, no, and I was actually just unfortunately the feed from the main room had gotten muted for me on my end, so I wasn't even sure if I was talking over someone at that moment. So,
Apologies.
yeah, aside from the technical difficulties, good evening, and it's good to be here. I didn't hear my introduction, but if we are good to go, I'll go ahead and jump into the presentation.
Good to go, Rob.
Perfect. All right, so Again, Rob Murray with King Consulting. We've been looking at your demographics and projections for a few years now, and we have the update that we prepared based on your 25-26 enrollments. So the overview is, for those of you who have heard me speak here before, is going to be very similar to what you've been hearing. Your enrollment peaked even earlier than some other districts. It's been a more or less continual decrease most years since 2002-3. And I can easily pull enrollments dating back to 1981, and you cannot find anything as low as where your current enrollment is going back to that time. And this is a purely demographic situation. It just has to do with the number of school age children who live within your school district boundaries. And of course, as you know, your enrollment has a lot of things beyond just your residents, but that is still the single biggest factor, and we are not seeing a change on that anytime soon. We do look at some other factors that might help push back against this trend, but we did hear the analogy earlier of whales and minnows, and this is very much the whale of this situation is just how many fewer children live in your district than was the case 20 plus years ago. So we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, and here's just that quick look back over the previous decade of enrollments, and you can see things have at least generally stabilized over the last few years, but still just slightly trending down with decreasing enrollments. And next slide, please. And then just a reminder, of course, as a high school district, the foundation of your enrollment is who is enrolled in your 10 different elementary school districts that feed into you for high school. And if we go to the next slide, you can see their enrollment trends over the previous decade. And I just want to point out a little bit of caution where you see the stabilization of their enrollments in the last few years, but keeping in mind, not something you've had to deal with directly as the high school district, but the expansion of transitional kindergarten. If not for that, you would be seeing total enrollment decreases across here. You can kind of look at taking that TK Kinder line out, but in first grade 10 years ago, you routinely had kind of mid 400s size cohorts. You're down to about the mid 300s in terms of who's enrolled right now. Previously, over 600 students in 8th grade waiting to come to high school in 16-17, now almost 100 fewer students. So these are and you can just kind of look up that column and see that trend for them of increasingly smaller numbers of students enrolled is going to keep occurring. So next slide. And we haven't had a new decennial census, but there's that reminder that looking at total population can kind of mask the drop in the school age population, which even between 2010 and 2020, we could record occurring. And we can go to the next slide. And just keeping in mind, we also look at and this kind of figure of what we call grade to grade migration, but looking at all of your 9 through 11 students from the previous year. And then they say goodbye for the summer. They come back the next year as grade 10 to 12. If no one ever moved in or out, this would be flat zeros across the board. In actuality, you gain some students, you lose some students, and on net, you tend to be slightly negative. That's not uncommon among high school grades, both in high school districts and in the upper grades of unified school districts. But you can really see there's been a bit of a reversal in that. A couple of positive years recently and one of your least negative years in the current year. And that includes some impact from the bits of residential development that you get, just in generally attracting more new students than you have existing students who don't come back for whatever reason. And so that at least is helpful. But again, these are the minnows relatively to the whale of just how many kids are coming in from your feeder pipeline year after year after year. So one more slide, please. And this is what we're seeing with the grand total of everything. That total at the bottom of your moderate projection is just for grades 9 to 12. We're just also showing you what we think the 8th grade feeders are going to look like so that you can kind of see how that's decreasing over time and how that will directly also impact what's going on with some of the 9th grade enrollments. Some good news for you. The current 7th grade cohort, so next year's 8th graders and year 27, 28 9th graders, is sort of a little bit of a return, a little bit of a swing up again with what should be a larger cohort that will enter for you based on who we see right now. But after that, it unfortunately is mostly getting smaller and smaller again. And then as you see, your total enrollment, we think could somewhat stabilize based on as things are right now, given that your current freshman cohort of the 359 ninth graders that you had enrolled should represent about the small end of who you get in any given year. And as that, with a couple of big cohorts that will be spread out and kind of bubble through, that should keep you from dipping all the way below 1500, it looks like, for a few more years. But how, as we've said, and we can actually go to the next slide and just get some demonstrations with just some coloring. But once we get out to where it's the current 3rd graders, I believe, just particularly smaller than a lot of the cohorts that are older. And when that group starts getting to high school, and you can see based on the size of the 8th graders up there dipping down consistently into the low 500s and below 500 by that point, that going forward from there will really be that sustained dip. You get that last big cohort that I just mentioned that will be freshmen in 27, 28, seniors in 30, 31. Once they graduate, you'll have that immediate big replacement of, 400 plus students out, 360-ish coming in, and just that immediate drop by almost 40 students of your bottom line based on that. And then one more slide, and that is looking at the spatial analysis. And we heard some reference to this earlier tonight, but looking at the fact that obviously a lot of your enrollment does come to you from outside of your district boundary, and the lion's share of that is coming from Santa Rosa. And so looking at the potential, kind of separately projecting the students you've enrolled whose resident district is Santa Rosa City Schools High School District, and how that population would be projected independently to change, and then just saying, if we go to the next slide, what that same moderate enrollment projection could look like if starting, and this just shows, it may not be as literal as this, but starting next year, if no new 9th grade students come in from SRCS, but everyone else who's already here remains, and then going forward, no new incoming students, by 2029-30, there would be no more SRCS students enrolled in your district. And you can see the difference is going from kind of staying just above or starting to dip below 1500 to really probably just working to stay above 1,000 total students without the few hundred students currently enrolled from SRCS. And that has actually been an increasing statistic over the last few years. So that is what we're seeing. Again, very high level here with the presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has. And thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you so much, Rob. I did have one of the questions, but you answered it by the last slide, because my question was, do the feeder school projections include the in and out of district students? And yes, you're showing us that in the last slide, what it looks like without students from Santa Rosa. So thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Rob? Anybody in the audience have any questions for Rob? Do I have a comment card? Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, Lily. Thank you.
Hi again, just speaking for myself at this point, not as a representative of the Teachers Association. Tonight's demographic presentation leads to a question I think the board should formally explore. As you've heard, we're facing a significant enrollment shift over the next several years, largely because of Santa Rosa City Schools, but that could also increase to other neighboring school districts that see that as a winning strategy for themselves. And they're beginning to restrict students from transferring out. That means whether we like it or not, our district is about to experience something that looks like an enrollment lockdown, one grade at a time. That's relevant because one of the defining features of being a basic aid funded district is that enrollment is largely limited to students who live within our district boundaries. The painful part of transitioning to basic aid, if it ever were to happen, is exactly what we're about to experience with our neighboring districts shutting down their borders. Each incoming class excludes out of district students, which forces staffing and program adjustments that are quite painful. Given that this dynamic is already starting, not by choice, but by external policy, I think this is the right moment for the board to ask a clear, data-driven question. At what point, if ever, would basic aid status advantage this district or not under our projected enrollment and property tax conditions? I'm not advocating for a particular outcome tonight. I'm asking for information. Specifically, I'd like the board to direct the CBO to conduct a multi-year analysis comparing projected LCFF funding and projected property tax revenue so we can understand whether basic aid is ever a realistic or beneficial scenario for West Sonoma County. Even if the answer is never, that clarity would be valuable as we plan staffing programs and negotiations for years ahead. Thank you.
So Andrew, could you clarify for Lily a little bit on that? Thank you.
Well, yeah, for basic aid, is that your property taxes are going to be more than what your local control funding formula dictates your state revenue, basically. So it's how much the state gives you a guarantee of what you're going to get. Your property taxes exceed it, so that makes you community funded. Our current property tax rate is $16 million. So we'd have to get our state guarantee below $16 million. That's our current tax rate. So and it increases about 1.5% each year the past couple of years. Some years in the past, it's been closer to 3%. So, if our state guarantee ever gets below our property tax, then that's where, it's going to dictate whether we're basic aid or LCFF funding. So, we'd have to see where the last time we looked at it was 1,000 to 1,200 students. So we'd have to see what it does. And again, what is your attendance rate going to be to generate that funding? So we'd have to look to see what we're at again. 20 million.
Additionally, and Lily, I'm glad you asked that question. We talked about that last week in our informal. Andrew and I have been studying this, and he's obviously our expert there. And I think one thing that's a misconception per se with regard to what our property taxes would look like versus like a Healdsburg is that at 16, even 17 million, it's not going to have an impact on our average daily allowance, right? Our LCFF is 14 and some change, where you're seeing Healdsburg at 22 per student because their property tax is about 27 million. Because we have so many rural properties, our values aren't what some people might think, even though this is a very affluent area. So I just wanted to add that, and we can obviously further study it. And Andrew, if you have anything to add to that, or if I wasn't correct in those numbers, but we have talked about this over the past several days.
No, go back and look at the LCF calculator. It's 20, almost $21 million as to what our state LCFF guarantee would be. Property taxes are about 16 million currently. If we give that trend out to 1.5% as to what's been happening, we get to about 17 million. So we'd have to bring down that state guarantee to what they're saying that we'd get. It would all be based off of enrollment and really based off of what ADA is doing.
And that's where you see what they call the overflow of the property tax bucket that then brings up your average daily allowance for your per pupil funding.
Yeah, if we always talk about Healdsburg and you look at their LCFF funding is about equal to what we are right now, and but they're $27 million in property tax, so they're about $7 million or so higher.
Basically, our enrollment would have to drop drastically.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, our property tax, even though we're a very large district, one of the, about the third largest in the state. We don't have the property values as people like to think they are, but they're not. We have a lot of contiguous properties as well that lowers and a lot of Prop 19 properties as well.
Essentially, we could see the school shrink to
13.
1,000 and our per pupil funding could be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because of our property tax base.
But we'll take that and look at and build out that LCFF
Look at it and see.
calculator and
I
see
think
how
our
that.
enrollment would have to
does.
drop,
Yeah.
500, 600, 700 kids. And I don't know that
Yeah.
that's, I hope that doesn't happen, but it might. So, I don't, but I think it's down the road a ways. Again, thank you so much, Rob. Does anybody else have any questions for Rob? Dale, you want to go to the,
Been studying for this, but given that the middle schools in the area, the feeder districts, are also, have a high percentage of students outside the district. So it's just kind of, I mean, that's why you can't go basic aid in this area too. So I don't know, it's not just a question, but this is going to be a political issue more than anything. But it's kind of interesting because those numbers are what you're predicting enrollment on, right?
and the biggest problem is our, those feeder districts with the largest amount of students that come to us, meaning Gravenstein, Twin Hills, and Oak Grove, they're all charter schools. And so they can still continue to get the inflow of students. And the unfortunate part is that when there's families transition from 8th grade to 9th grade, they're going to get a rude awakening when Santa Rosa says, oh no, you have to go to our schools. And they may see also, some of those middle schools may see a downturn only for the fact that they will find out that their kids can't come to our schools. So they may decide to stay in their home district. So, who knows? Yes, Paige?
It's like I do think that final slide to that EMAD, I mean, it shows like the 8th grade class of 568, but then the enrollment would be 284 from that. So that's where, right.
The shift between the 300 kids you get from out of school.
So I think for that 8th grade cohort though, Rob, we don't know where those middle school students are. So that's just kind of what it is. And you've trended that out. And then based off of pulling out what we think our 100 students are, right?
Yeah, I would say it's at least it's kind of apples to apples looking back. And the main point is looking at how consistently that ratio is of what you get from 9th grade the next year based on who was in 8th grade the year before. But yes, I mean, you see even right now, it's a bit, there's a drop off. And exactly it is to that point that a lot of those 8th graders are also not residents, but it's a stable enough ratio that we can still say, yes, it's a good predictor. If we know how many 8th grade students there are, that gives us a reasonable idea how many 9th graders will enroll at West Sonoma County Union High School District the next year. The difference would be exactly to that point if there is a real shift. And I would say that, again, that 8th to 9th grade ratio has not shown me this, but if we really start seeing, the 8th grade cohort start to increase in size and we don't see a corresponding increase in your enrollments, that's where we would want to take a look. And we can certainly, I know, Andrew, you've done a great job of, working with all the feeder districts to get me the enrollments that they have in the current year every year, which is very helpful. But we can certainly also do the same kind of just quick spatial analysis, just, do that scatter map, see where the students are, if they're willing to share those student addresses with us, just to the extent that would be helpful. That could be in addition to, the next version of this that we roll out.
Thank you, Rob. Paige?
I'm not sure that anybody here is the right person to answer this, but I'm going to ask anyway. I'd be interested to know how the possibility of unification with some of our feeder districts would actually impact some of these enrollment problems. If not enrollment necessarily, but then at least funding.
Yes.
Not be able to come here then.
It's state law that allows that process. Yes.
Okay.
Mary?
Do you know whether or not the people who would like to have a separate El Molino district are where that stands? I think that they see themselves as being basic aid. That would be a big impact on this district.
Yes, it would.
And Jeannie, you work on that committee, right? Do you know where that stands?
I haven't heard anything about it.
Thank you.
Nothing's come forward from it, so yeah. Okay, any more questions or comments? Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rob, for the interesting information.
No, you are welcome. Yeah, we'll maybe hope next time I'm back to have something a little bit more optimistic, but I will certainly always tell you what I see. But thank you for having me and good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just appreciate the fact, and thank you, Andrew and Chris, for pushing forward with the King Consulting and having them continue to do this, because I really think it's made a difference for us and helped us with our projections. And we're not just guessing, and we're having, someone professional give us the information. So thank you. I think it is helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, let me go back here. Okay, we're going to move on to consideration of approval of a developer fee allocation agreement with Sebastopol Union Elementary School District. Can I get a motion, please? Thank you, Louis. A second? Thank you so much, Linda. Andrew?
All right, so this is the final developer fee allocation split agreement with Sebastopol Union. The agreement is to split developer fees 69% with Sebastopol Union and us receiving 31% of the current 517 allocation. So with that.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Andrew? All in favor? Aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to human resources with Dan. Consideration of approval of MOUs with West Sonoma County Teachers Association for teachers teaching 1.2 FTE for the spring semester 25-26. Can I get a motion, please? Thank you, Linda. Second? Thank you, Rio. Okay. Dan?
Yes, it's MOU night in HR. So I've got 3 separate MOUs that we're going to consider as one item here. We had a somewhat unique situation. We had a teacher resign at the semester to take a management level position in another district, and we did grant that that resignation. And in particular, 3 of the sections that she was teaching were the Math 1 sections, and wanting to have as much continuity as possible and stability for those students and not have to move schedules around. We were very fortunate that 3 of our current Math 1 teachers, Henry Atherley, Jonathan Lopez, and Margaret Pedersen, were all already teaching that subject and had prep periods that aligned with those 3 sections of classes. So they each agreed to take on a 6th class out of 7 and work a 1.20 FTE. We generally try to avoid 1.20 FTEs, but in this case, we thought it was in the best interest of students, and everything lined up very well. So we're asking for the board's approval, and WSCTA and agreed with us on that. And so we're asking for the board's approval for these 3 MOUs to allow these teachers to teach 1.2 FTE for the spring semester.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Dan on this? I just want to say a huge thank you to those teachers for stepping up to do that. And what a coincidence that their prep periods all matched. We're pretty lucky. So thank you to them. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you so much. Next, we're going to do consideration of approval of MOU with West Sonoma County Teachers Association for increase to drama fall and spring production stipends. Can I get a motion, please? Thank you. A second? Thank you, Louis. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
This is an MOU similar to one that was approved last year. 2 years ago, it was decided in the master schedule to remove the drama production course from the master schedule and then therefore have the drama program be done after school hours. And so there was an existing stipend, there is an existing stipend on our appendix for stipends. But both WSCTA and the district agreed that given that there was no longer a course that a teacher was teaching, but that all of the preparation and the rehearsals and so forth would all have to be done outside of school hours. Both parties agreed that it made sense to continue this increased stipend. So you'll notice that the stipend would have been $4,848 per semester. The increase takes that to $5,818 per semester. And again, we're asking for the board's approval to grant that additional stipend amount for this year.
Thank you so much. Is there any questions for Dan on this item? Again, so no, I appreciate the fact that teachers willing to do this. So that's great. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Next is consideration of approval of MOU with West Sonoma County Teachers Association for CTA grant coordinator stipend.
Okay.
Can I get a motion? Oh. Thank you, Louis. Second. Thank you. Thank you, Rio. I'm waiting. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
And then this MOU involves, as you're aware, we receive a Career Technical Education Incentive Grant, or CTIG grant, every year, and there's a great deal of coordination that goes into that. This stipend, however, is not on the appendix list, and so in order to formalize that, we wanted to enter into this MOU with WSCTA to pay this coordinator stipend out of the grant. Again, both parties agreed that it is the amount, the $7,757 is commensurate with the amount of work involved with both writing and administering this particular large grant.
Thank you so much. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Oppose? Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to facilities, Measure A bond and budget project updates. Jenny.
Thank you. I'm going to share with you guys a picture just in case you haven't been out to Laguna to see the new sign. It's really pretty. And you can see it like right as you're approaching the tennis courts. So you can see it pretty far down. And I remember when it was installed just a week ago now, Greg called me up and he's like, oh my God, I could see it from coming up Covey. It looks so great. So I was really happy about that. So that was one thing. The AIA sign goes in on Monday. We did that because it's right over where they house the AIA classes, and we didn't want to be a distraction. Facing towards the bus circle Rose Garden. So I didn't want you guys to think that we forgot about that. We haven't forgot about the Wayfinder signs either. It's just kind of a work in progress. We are starting the RFQ process for leaseback contractors for the projects that were approved at the last board meeting, which I will remind you, the Annalise Stadium, the El Molino campus kitchen modernization. We've started design meetings and are going through that process. This is a good time to point out that these projects, after all of our projects kind of shake out, we think we'll have anywhere between $7 and $10 million remaining in Measure A. Mind you, we passed a $91 million bond. We've spent a lot of money over the last several years doing a lot of good work around all of our campuses that are for the betterment of not only our teachers, but our students and our community at large. And as we proceed forward with, the next iteration of projects, I think it's really important that we're careful on how we allocate those dollars and what we allocate those dollars at. And it's just more of me to remind us that, hey, that when we think about $7 to $10 million, it's a lot of money. But when we look at a project, it's not. So that's kind of just a gentle reminder of what's going on. We can continue to move forward with the CTE project, which Chuck mentioned in his report out. It's coming along very nicely, and we're very happy our power shutdown went off without a hitch. So we are officially on our new power, and we are acclimating buildings. So
Can we get a plan a tour sometime, like prior to a board meeting or
anytime.
something?
We want to make sure it's light out, so
Yeah.
usually we do tours around 4 o'clock.
Okay.
But if anyone's around on the 26th, you're coming to the PD day. I give tours with students all the time. We're making sure our kids get in these spaces. I think Chuck, you guys went with Chris, and we went with the actual teachers teaching in these spaces. It was really, really fun. I think, Andrew, did you come out? No, you guys should come out. Everybody should come. Field trip.
I'd like to.
No hard hat needed, but watch out for all the nails on the ground because they're messy. So
Thank
happy
you.
to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you.
Sorry. We've got $90 million of new capital infrastructure, which is amazing and beautiful. What are we doing to make sure that we have ongoing maintenance so that it doesn't start to fall apart and we lose it over the next 10 years? Do we have money set aside? Is it budgeted? Because it's an integral part of having that stuff is keeping it up. So what's the plan around that?
I'd love to lean on Chris and Andrew a little bit. I know we have routine restricted maintenance funds, which is approximately 3% of the general fund that help fund my department for basic routine maintenance and repairs. But that's basically the equivalency of us painting the Golden Gate Bridge. There's a lot of mandates that we have to do over the course of any year. We've been relying heavily on bond funds, so I would.
I'm happy to jump in there. As we have discussed, in light of the decision that we made to pull back our bond process and efforts because of the fiscal climate in our community, it's been our intention to work with Greg Isom and look at a future bond timeline and process. So I think one thing we'd like to do is get the board's blessing to have Greg come in February, talk about what the process and timeline would look like. And ultimately, we would have an item agendized, which we can talk further through during agenda setting, to appropriately give the board the ability to authorize the survey process, and then we would launch. Being that, a bond process in this fiscal climate is uncertain, there are some other options too. We can set aside funds in monies from the general fund in Fund 14 to ensure that we have some dollars to lean on in the event that we have facility issues come up and we don't have that bond. I think Jenny said it really clearly. The remaining bond dollars have really been allocated to future projects completing current projects underway. And we'd love to really do some other amazing things over the next 10 years. But I think to kind of maintain the investments that we've made with Measure A, I think it would be fiscally irresponsible for us to not have that conversation and consider setting aside general fund dollars in Fund 14.
Thank you.
And Fund 14 was a deferred maintenance fund that we currently still have. The state, I want to say probably when they went to LCFF, kind of took that away. I can't remember exactly the time frame, but it's been a while since we were required to make a 1% contribution to deferred maintenance Fund 14. Yeah, it was around right when we went out. If I remember
It was
right.
last year. It was my second year here. Was the last time we made a contribution.
Yeah.
So I've been here 11 years now.
Yeah. So, and if I recall correctly, it was 1% that you'd have to contribute, and then deferred maintenance that's deferred maintenance, Fund 14, and then routine restricted maintenance is a 3%. So it's putting that million away basically each year into restricted maintenance, routine restricted maintenance. So that deferred maintenance account, Fund 14, is sitting there with just some interest in there, about just a little over $100,000, but no additional funds have gone in there for 10 years. And so if bond funds go away, we don't aren't successful with an additional bond, we will need to have some additional money set aside to maintain the $91 million in projects, roofing, HVAC, should major things need to happen for continued deferred maintenance.
Andrew, can you clarify for the board what that process would look like?
Yeah, we'd have to do a resolution and determine an amount of what we can transfer out of unrestricted general fund into Fund 14 through resolution.
And am I to think that if in fact we need that money for something else, we can make another resolution and claw it back? Or
I have to verify on that.
Okay, that would be good
Yeah,
to know.
yeah. Mhm.
We should keep this on our radar. That's all.
It's
So-
just another point. We've applied for over $20 million in state funding.
Right.
We're actively applying for every grant possible out there. We are trying to be as fiscally responsible for going out and pounding the pavement for money. It just really need to shine a light on the fact that even though we've completed in my tenure here, over $125 million worth of projects, we identified in 2010 $200 million worth of needs. And every year that we defer that work, it escalates. So we're never, I shouldn't say never, it's very hard to catch it. And we're always going to have building turnover. When I had first started here, the main building had just been re-roofed. That was 11 years ago. It's a 20-year roof. In 10 years, it's going to need to be re-roofed, or we can re-roof it in 3 years with an overlay. So the cost of deferring building maintenance is millions of dollars if you don't do it.
Yeah, no, I agree. So Andrew, maybe you can look into what this all involves and get us back some more information. And we can talk about, what kind of dollars we're talking about. And, with Jenny's help, I think you can probably figure that out. And anything else on that, Chris? Yeah. And I think we need to bring Greg back in February and have that discussion with him. Definitely. I know that Chris and I are going to try to connect with him and talk about a parcel tax versus a bond. And I think Greg has some opinion on that, but I'd like him to bring that information to us as well. So, anyway, that's my thought on that. Anybody else have any thoughts on this? No? You guys like the idea of this? Thumbs up. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that, Jenny and Chris and Andrew. Appreciate it. Last but not least, consideration of a facility use agreement with Forestville Union School District for the use of El Molino High School campus in the event of an emergency and their campus cannot be used. Can I get a motion, please? Thank you so much. Rio, second?
Second.
Thank you, Lewis. Appreciate it. Take it off.
We were approached by Forestville as they're developing some new programs on their campus that require them to have a strategy for in the event of an emergency. And they reached out to us. We Chris and I worked through what process we felt would be best. I don't know if you guys recall, a little over a year ago, Sonoma Earth School came to us with the same request. We decided that we wanted to push them through the facility use route rather than having a formal MOU that has to be redone every year and has to be on someone's radar. Given the nature of this type of request and that it's a school coming to us and wanting to potentially relocate on our campus, and there's some complexities to that, we felt like we should daylight that at the board level as we had previously done that with Sonoma Earth. This would work in basically the superintendent or a designee would contact us if there was a need. We would work with the site administration to determine we had availability to house them on campus. It's not a guarantee that our campus would be available. Our first priority is our own students. Second priority is making sure that we have safe exit routes for them to come onto our campus and that our campus is safe. And so this is just us wanting to kind of solidify the board's understanding of of the nature of this request, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Interesting topic. Any questions for Jenny on this? Any discussion?
I know that school's pretty old, but I guess in case of an earthquake situation, what do we?
They have a big field in the back area. Let's say that they had a fire and they needed to immediately evacuate to somewhere. They could walk up to our campus and have a place to congregate, or we could, we talked a little bit, or Chuck talked a little bit about it earlier when we talk about reunification. If something happened on that campus, God forbid, an active shooter or a situation, they're going to go to the nearest large space where they could potentially reunify families. So this is not uncommon for us to have kind of articulation agreements. Sonoma Earth School is like 18 kids. They used us 2 or 3 weeks ago when it was really bad weather. This started off with a pre-K request. And when I asked some probing questions, they said, oh yeah, it would be nice if we could evacuate the whole campus. So that's where it kind of turned into a small request and why we're here tonight. So in terms of collaborating and working with our neighboring districts regarding emergency preparedness, I think this is really important.
Yeah, Lewis.
Interesting agreement. It looks like it's an agreement that we would make space available as long as we have the space, and the cost of it though is to be determined based on usage. So it's not tied to a dollar amount.
Well, we have the reason we tied it to the facility use agreement is because we already have board policy. It's the Civic Act regarding facility use. What I was recommending is that we waive the use of the facility, which I think the gym is what would be designated, or the cafeteria. I mean, it's like $10 an hour for a school district. But what we want to charge them is our actual costs. So any of our custodial that may need to work directly for them at that event, or any supplies that we provided during their time. So that would be the direct costs associated with their use.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we want to be good partners in this. It makes tons of sense to me.
Yeah, no, it makes good sense to support them in any way we can. They are our neighbors, so I think that's great. And I like the fact that, you're going to consider working with Greg and the staff out there to be sure where would we put them and where they're, not converging with our students and not getting in the mix there. So
we have a process in place right now. So
I think that's
anytime
great.
Sonoma Earth contacts me, I immediately check in with Greg first. It's his campus. He's the one who's going to deal with the impact, and then we go from there. So this would be no different.
Yeah, and I think charging them is, beyond pale. I don't know that we need to do that. This is what you do for neighbors. But any direct costs, I agree. We have to incur. They would have to incur that, certainly. Any other comments on this? All in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you so much. Okay, so I gotta put my glasses on. I cannot read without them. Okay, so we are done here tonight, and Jenny called it. She said 9 p.m. and I think we're pretty darn close. I said, oh no, but she did. She called it. So wow. Thank you. Good night, and we'll see you next month.